international aid agencies and some allies are pressing the United States to do more to address the humanitarian crisis. While recognizing that U.S. aid funds have been generous, they have appealed this week for greater flexibility and action on issuing new Treasury licenses. How does the administration respond to these calls, and is it planning any additional licenses or loosening of sanctions?
Well, John, so we have a commitment that you have heard to the people of Afghanistan, and you've seen us make good on that commitment, and in a number of ways. Just earlier this month, we committed an additional $308 million in humanitarian assistance for the people of Afghanistan. That brings our total humanitarian assistance to more than $500 million since mid-August alone, since mid-August of 2021. With the support of U.S. funding, our partners on the ground, including UNHCR, reached over 196,000 Afghans. UNHCR used these funds to provide basic relief items and cash assistance, winterization supplies, food, protection needs, shelter, and more. When it comes to, and that of course is only one of our partners. When it comes to the issue of the authorizations and the specific and general licenses that we've spoken to from the Department of the Treasury, they have issued both to facilitate the provision of of humanitarian aid to the people of Afghanistan. We want to be very clear to the international community that not only are we not standing in the way of the provision of much needed humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people, but we are doing everything we can to facilitate the flow of vital assistance and support to the Afghan people. We've also worked in multilateral fora to do the same. We advocated for the UN Security Council to adopt UN Security Council Resolution 2615 that exempted humanitarian and other activities that support basic needs from so-called 1988 sanctions. Again, to signal to the world that the international community can and should do all that it is able to support the people of Afghanistan. We've worked with the World Bank, with the so-called Afghanistan Reconstruction Trust Fund, to release nearly $300 million in funding, $280 million in relief. We've worked with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We have worked with other multilateral organizations as well. And one final point, in addition to all of that, we have brought more than 4.3 million doses of safe and effective COVID vaccines to the people of Afghanistan. So we have been a humanitarian leader when it comes to Afghanistan. We have used our own resources, our own authorities, but importantly, and in some ways just as importantly, our own galvanizing power to shine a spotlight on this, to do what we are able, but also to make clear to the international community that we need to do all that we can, and that every responsible country around the world, whether it's in the region or beyond, has an opportunity and in some cases has an obligation to the people of Afghanistan.
Well, the contention from the aid organizations is that, sure, the United States has done all of those things that you listed out, but that the scale and the scope of the crisis is such that there hasn't been sufficient action on sanctions and licenses.
The fact is that the scale of the crisis is enormous. The scale of the crisis demands a global response. That is why, in addition to everything we have done, whether it's licensing, whether it is support, whether it is lobbying, whether it's advocating in international fora, we also know that the international community needs to raise its ambition. We've been clear about that. We've been clear about that in donor conferences. We've been clear about that in our bilateral engagements and our multilateral engagements as well. So there is no understating the scale of the crisis. And that is why we have been clear and consistent in calling on the international community to raise its ambition, just as we have continued to make good on the commitment you've heard from us to the Afghan people. Yes?